Hey, welcome back to the How to Podcast series. It's Dave with you yet again. Hello. Hi. Hope you're doing good. It's October 2024 when I'm recording this, midway through the month, and I'm here with you, enjoying time with you. Hope you have a nice beverage with you. What is it, a coffee, tea, something a little adult-style drink? Maybe it's milk and cookies. Oh, I love a good milk and cookie, like peanut butter chocolate chip cookies. Okay. All right, I got to go take a break. I'll be right back. No, okay, I can stay. So we're talking today about social media. My love-hate relationship with social media. And if you're like me, you're trying to balance podcast creation, coming up with content, interviewing guests, doing the editing, blah, 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 blah. That's the podcast. That's what we signed up for, right? The podcast. And then we have these gurus who surround us in the night and say, that's only one piece. Dave, if you're going to be a successful podcaster, you have to have a blog. And I'm like, I have to have a what? And then there's another guru comes out of the bushes and says, oh, if you want to be success, you have to post 7 times in 72 hours on social media, especially Instagram, if you're going to be a success in podcasting. And then yet another guru comes out of the bush and says, Facebook community groups is the best way to grow your podcast. You need to be in a community group, monitoring it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, interacting with every post. You need to be on Facebook like it's your job. And then, oh, wait, the bushes part again. And someone dances their way towards me with this guru and says, if you're not dancing on TikTok and holding your hands up and putting these words where your hands are and doing all these things to the most trending song on TikTok, screw podcasting, you're going to fail. And then, here comes one more. It's a YouTube person saying, if your podcast is in video, you better not be a podcaster. And as I look around at all these gurus coming from the forest around me, I just want to have a podcast, like what I'm doing with you right now. That's what I signed up for. I have a job. Great. I work at a job, and this is what I do on my days off. This is not my full-time gig doing this podcast for you. I work 40 hours a week and do this on my days off, which is today. And I've recorded 4 episodes today because I'm trying to keep up with my production calendar and everything going on in my life and try to give myself some time back later on this week. So I'm doing all this on my day off. Like, when you cut your lawn and get your groceries and do your laundry and all those things, I'm here with you. So what I'm hearing in podcasting circles is this undercurrent from podcasters like you and me saying, to all you gurus out there that are trying to sell us a course, like a $2,000 course to become a certified podcast growth specialist. What? To all you gurus out there who are trying to sell us on the fact that if we don't have social media, we don't have a podcast. If we don't have a YouTube video podcast, we don't have a podcast. Just remember, every book isn't a movie, right? And not every movie is a book. People, can we remember this for a second? Just because you write a book doesn't mean you have to go make a movie now. You can be okay writing a book. And just because you made a movie doesn't mean you have to turn it into a book. Okay? And to the same degree, just because you have a podcast doesn't mean it has to be all of the things that all these gurus are going to sell you in an email, on a newsletter, on a website, on a podcast. You don't have to do that if your goal is to be a podcaster. And in 2024, there seems to be a trend developing. And I'm curious to know if you've caught on to this at all, if you kind of heard this grumbling happening. But there's this undercurrent happening where podcasters are reassessing their relationship with social media platforms. Now, if you go to my social media platforms, you're going to see me hit and miss. When I have time, I go there. But for the most part, I don't have time to go there. This shift is being driven by several factors, including concerns about our return on investment in dealing with all these social platforms, and a desire for more control over the engagement we have with our audience without having to pay to get in front of the audience that already knows, likes, and trusts us. There's a declining return on investment on social media, and it's having a big impact on podcasters. You want to know more? Okay, here we go. As I work with podcasting clients, whether new to podcasting or been in it for a long time, I'm noticing that podcasters are finding that the time and effort invested in social media platforms is not yielding the expected returns that they were promised when they first started into their social media journey. The return on investment, you'll hear people say ROI, the letters ROI, return on investment for social media efforts has becoming increasingly difficult to measure and really to justify the time and money that people put into social media. What I'm finding is organic reach on platforms like Facebook and Instagram have significantly decreased, with only a very small fraction of content actually being shown to followers without you, as the content creator, paying to have your content promoted to the people who already follow you and to the people who don't know who you are. And this constant need to create platform-specific content is so time-consuming, especially for the 80 to 90% of podcasters who are not monetized, who don't have a team, do it from the office or bedroom of their house, do everything themselves. The majority of podcasters who are not in that camp where they're getting paid to do this constant need to create this content cycle, this hamster wheel that we're all seem to be on with very little return on investment. It's not helping our audience grow. We as podcasters are being encouraged to create all this platform-specific content, which can often be time-consuming, expensive, can be overwhelming for people. I know podcasters that are like, well, I have a podcast, but I guess it's time to start being on social media again. And I'm like, well, what? Wait a minute. Why do you feel the need or the compulsion that you have to be on social media because you have a podcast? I understand being on social media because you enjoy it. It makes you better and you can connect with your friend from grade 8, and that's great. But having to, remember, I always kind of wave this flag in podcasting that you don't have to do anything in podcasting except podcast. That's the one thing you have to do is actually have a show if you want to be a podcaster. But all this other stuff, social media, video podcasting, live podcasting, streaming, just so everything, social media, newsletters, blogs, all these things that are maybe additional things that you can add when you have time if you want to, but none of these things are mandatory. None of these things are requirement to have a show. Again, the only requirement to having a podcast is to have a podcast. What I'm doing right here. This is the requirement for being a podcaster. You don't have to have social media to have a podcast. You don't. You don't have to have a blog to be a podcaster. Every episode doesn't have to be a blog. Does it help you? Probably. Is it mandatory? No. I didn't become a podcaster to become a writer. I wanted to be a podcaster to be a podcaster. And it's okay to simply be a podcaster. It's okay to simply have an audio podcast. You don't have to do a video podcast. And you don't have to not do a video podcast. Do you see what I mean? There are no have-tos in podcasting except podcasting. All of these other things can add benefits. They can add reach, audience engagement. They're all great things when you have time. And if in certain levels and your abilities, it's okay. But none of these are have-tos. So this constant feeding of social media like a hamster wheel, I'm not seeing a great return on investment in doing so. Do I love connecting with you on Instagram and in the DMs and liking your posts and doing community with you there? Sure. But I only go there when I have time. I don't make it a priority. I don't post updates on my episodes 7 times in a certain period of time. That's ridiculous because I don't have time to do that. I have a life and a job and a family and pets and responsibilities. I'm an adult and I don't have time to do all those things. So I should not be punished or made a second-class podcaster because I don't do what you're telling me to do as a guru. So this whole anxiety and stress that we're under to be on social, I don't see a great return on investment for the time and money I invest in social to continue doing it to the level that is being promoted today as mandatory minimums, that you must do it this much and this often and in these many places, otherwise you're not a podcaster. I push back on that. I'm seeing more of a push from podcasters to build community off of social media, off of rented land, by email newsletters. A lot of people do email newsletters. I've signed up for some. I read a couple. I don't have one because I don't like writing as much. So I don't do that. I don't do blogs either. No. Email newsletters is one way to build a community off of social media because you own the conversation, because people sign up for it and all that. So that's one method. It works for some people. You might want to try it if you haven't. But dedicated community platforms like Discord or Slack, for me, it's Meetup. These are ways that you can build community off of social media. You're asking people to come to a new platform they may not be as familiar with, like a Facebook or an Instagram or a TikTok. You're going to go to a Discord group and it's going to look like a 1980s version of the internet. But people like to connect in chat forums. I'm not a chat forum person, but that's another option, though, you can try for your show. But I think the biggest thing that's kind of not promoted is just having your own website and your own way for people to be in touch with you and build community. I love meetups because I can see you. I can't see you on Discord or Slack, but I can see you on meetups. I can see you on my screen. So I love that for me. And I love having my own website. Remember, Facebook you don't own. Instagram you don't own. TikTok doesn't belong to you. Podpage you don't own. All of these places, you don't own it. The hosting site that gives you a website for your podcast, you don't own that. All of these places belong to someone else. The one place that you own is your .com, .ca, .info, .org, .fm, whatever you have, that website that you purchased with your credit card and you own this piece of the internet. You own that, and nobody can take that away from you. So do that. And I'm not talking about having like a link tree. That's just a bunch of links. But actually have a place where people can go and be in touch with you and you can communicate without having to pay to have your content shown to people. Put it on your website, pay $15 a year, and you're good. That's a great place to connect with your audience. And for me, if I have $5 and 5 minutes, I'm going to spend all of that on my website. I'm not going to spend it on Instagram, social media, any of those places, because I'm not going to get anything back for that. Really. $5 and 5 minutes? No. I'm going to throw that in my website. So what are some alternatives to traditional social media platforms? As podcasters, I have people coming to me seeking alternatives to social media. Several options are kind of gaining traction right now in 2024. One would be podcast-specific platforms, apps and websites designed specifically for podcast discovery and community building platforms, and they're emerging right now. So these are podcast-specific platforms. There's also niche social networks. They're smaller, more topics-focused social platforms that align closely with podcast themes, for example, and also direct messaging apps. Platforms like WhatsApp and Telegram, all these things are options to stay in touch with community. So I'm seeing a rise in that. But the one thing I want to look at and talk about is just the changing landscape of social media in 2024. While social media hasn't lost all of its attraction, a lot of us are still on it. I'm still on it. Its role in podcasters' strategies seems to be evolving. There's a growing emphasis on quality over quantity. The number of followers don't seem to matter quite as much, but the engagement seems to matter more. Podcasters are becoming more selective about which platforms they want to use, focusing on the ones that align best with the audience they want to reach and the goals that the podcaster has for their show. I'm hoping that you know your audience and you know your goals. If you don't, press pause on this podcast and start thinking about your audience and start thinking about your goals for your show. This whole pay-to-play model of social media is pushing a lot of podcasters to explore some other ways to grow their show and to grow their community. I don't love the fact that if you follow me on Facebook and I post something about my podcast, you have opted in to my content, but you won't see it unless I pay Facebook to show it to you. What is the point of opting into my content if you're not going to see anything that I post? You're going to see 100 cat videos and about 20 commercials, but you're not going to see anything that I post, even though you asked to see it, because it's just not going to be shown to you. I have to pay Facebook, again, I have to pay Facebook to show you my content that you wanted to see in the first place. Pay to play doesn't work. And if you're building your whole community around pay to play, you're only going to get what you put into it. And it's sad to say that you're not going to get a great return on your investment. What is the impact on podcast marketing in all of this? What I'm seeing right now is there's a shift changing in how podcasters are approaching marketing in general terms. Now, we know that marketing has killed radio. Marketing kills television. Marketing kills a lot of stuff. When we cram commercials in and go, can I get one more commercial in here before everybody gets really angry and leaves? So they try to squeeze every possible marketing opportunity in. Product placements in movies where it's like, I just watched A Man Called Otto, and you can tell that movie was sponsored by U-Haul. They had U-Haul boxes, U-Haul trucks, U-Haul this, U-Haul that. Man, I felt like moving, just like in the middle of that movie. It's a very moving movie, but not for the terms of using a U-Haul truck. Marketing is everywhere. You're surrounded by it. You're being marketed to constantly. More focus is being placed on search engine optimization for podcast discoverability. And I'm seeing that's where we need to spend the bulk of our time. Collaborations and cross-promotions with other podcasters are becoming more and more common as an alternative to social media marketing. Podcasters are investing more in their own platforms and technology to reduce dependence on all of these third-party networks and rented land. I see a lot of people, in effect, peeing in the wind, giving away money to social media platforms, begging to have their content shown to their own audience, and not getting a great result back. Their pant legs are wet, they're uncomfortable, and they've just invested in nothing. And they're not getting any return on what they've done. Social media remains a part of many of our strategies as podcasters, but it can't be your sole focus as a podcaster. And you don't have to drown in social media to have a show. Your podcast is not dependent on your social media platform. You need to hear this and understand this. You don't have to be everywhere. If you go back to the very beginning of the How to Podcast series, you're going to hear me talking about being everywhere. Now, what I want to qualify here is that if there's a new platform, I'm going to go register. I'm going to sign up. I'm going to put my name of my show on that new platform because I'm kind of holding space for myself. What if this platform becomes the new whatever? I want to at least have my name there. So I am on all the platforms. As much as I can, with as much ability and time I have, I'm everywhere. I talked about way back, early episodes, that if you want to win at a horse race, just bet on every horse and you're guaranteed to win. One of those horses somehow is going to cross the finish line. So if you put money on every horse, you will win every single time. You're going to spend a lot of money and you're going to lose a lot of money, but you will win, guaranteed, if you put money on every horse. True? So put money on every horse when you're setting up your podcast, in the sense that you're going to put yourself on all the different places, but your social media focus needs to be a platform that you enjoy, a platform where your audience would be on, and that there's engagement and it's working for you. Just remember that using social media should be a tool, not your home. Your home should be your website. Your home should be your interactions, eyeball to eyeball, face to face, person to person. That's where you should be the most active and building the strongest community. And I would prefer for you to own the keys to that location. I own rental property. My tenants do not own the rental unit. I own it. It's my place, and they're renting from me. It's like a long-term hotel room. They don't own it. So if you walked into a hotel room for your next event or trip, and you said, you know what, I'm going to spruce this place up. I'm going to change the wall color. I'm going to take that wallpaper down. I'm going to knock this little wall down. I'm going to make the bathroom bigger. A, somebody's going to come upstairs from the front desk and figure out what you're doing. But B, you're going to spend money on a place that you don't own, and you're going to leave, and anything you've done stays with the unit. You don't own it. And it's probably not a good idea to redecorate a hotel room. Unless you're a rock star, apparently you can get away with that. Don't invest your time, hard work, and money in a platform that you're just going to leave eventually, or they're going to close, or they're going to raise the rates of the room that you can't afford to go back. You don't own it. Focus on the places that you own. Invest in yourself, invest in your community, and don't invest every waking minute on social media. You do not have to have a vibrant Instagram account to be a podcaster. Underline the words have to. You do not have to do anything in podcasting except podcast. Build relationships. Do it in a real and rich way. Know the names of your listeners. Build community. Do something that's front-facing. Do something that you can't scale. Do something that takes your effort and your time, but is genuinely connected with the people in your world. You need to control the engagement, not a social platform. You need to look for something that's measurable, sustainable, that grows over time, and is beyond the traditional social media platforms and the hamster wheel of being an active social media content creator. We have two worlds here, people. We have Instagram people who have a podcast, and we have podcasters who have an Instagram account. Do you see what I'm saying? We're not equal. You can have an Instagram account and not have a podcast. Therefore, you can have a podcast and not have to have an Instagram account. Do you see what I'm saying? Not everyone on Facebook has a podcast. So does that mean that everybody has a podcast has to have a Facebook account? That doesn't make any sense. That's not logical. Focus on your podcast. And I actually heard somebody talk about this on a podcast recently. They said for all of the new podcasters starting a show, they tell their new podcasters, I want you to do nothing on social media for 6 months. Nothing. Don't promote your episodes. Don't build a group. Don't build a Facebook group. Don't build an Instagram. Don't do anything for 6 months and just get better at podcasting. And I'm like, wow, that's a very interesting and different perspective that goes against everything I see from podcast gurus and Instagram and social media gurus they're probably not having a good day when they hear that comment. My wish for you, when you do a show, when you create your podcast, is that you're not stressed out. You don't have to sign up for this crazy big expectation that you're going to meet and do all these things in addition to, because you have to, because you have a podcast. Please hear me. Focus on your show. Focus on growing as a podcaster, as an interviewer, as a host. Practice on becoming better on the microphone. Practice on doing better content. Practice on researching more. Practice on learning the tools and knowing more about podcasting before you jump into all of this other stuff. I want you to get so good at podcasting that it creates time in your calendar to do the other thing, instead of being terrible at podcasting and very good at Instagram. If that's the case, just be good at Instagram and forget the podcast. Where is your priorities as a podcaster? I would love to know. And if you're struggling with all of this, you're like, Dave, sounds great, but I'd just love to talk to you, Dave, about this, then use the links in the show notes on my website. You'll see there's calendar links for you. I would love to get together with you and chat about your podcast, chat about your journey, and help you grow this podcast thing that you've started. If I can help you in any way, I promise I will do my best to help you. And if you just need somebody to listen to your show, give you feedback, give you some advice, help you with your episode titles, the name of your podcast, artwork, website, any of those things, content, I would love to be a part of your circle of podcast friends who are there to support and give you everything you need to be success in podcasting. I would even love to just listen to your show. howtopodcast.ca is where you can find me, and I'd love to connect. So let's do that, okay? It's the middle of October. Got lots of time before Christmas, all the holiday season, the end of the year. Let's get working on that podcast. Let's get it out there. Thanks for listening to the show. Thanks for being here. Remember to keep podcasting, keep being you, because there's a shortage of you in the world, and you are the only one who can reach your audience. I can't do it. No one else can. And if you don't podcast, nobody else will take your spot. So please start your podcast soon and reach out if you need help. Thanks for listening. Hey, thanks for being here on the How to Podcast series. Glad to have you on the show with us, listening in, and hope they're finding value in the podcast. I hope you're finding something that helps you with your show, helps you with the tools and the information from these amazing guest co-hosts through our daily Daves and these solo episodes. The variety of what we're doing here on the podcast is all designed for you so that you can get the tools you need to create your podcast and keep going with your show. That's why we're here. That's why I'm doing this. And I'm glad you're here finding value in this. If you would like to do a little bit more than just be a listener, if you want to do community with podcasters, we have a thing called our Meetup on meetup.com. You can come find us, and there'll be a link on our website at howtopodcast.ca, and you can come and join in on our Meetup. Instead of just being a listener, you could actually participate and come in and join other podcasters, just like you, at your stage, at your level, where you're at right now. And then other podcasters who are maybe a little further down the road, who can learn from you and you can learn from them. And we host these meetups on a regular basis. Again, go to howtopodcast.ca and you'll find all the information there. We'd love for you to come join us at our next meetup. The only thing we need at our next meetup is you. You're the only thing missing from all of this. So consider joining our meetups. Again, they're totally free on a regular basis, all through howtopodcast.ca. And I'd love to hear more from you about your podcast. As well, there's a SpeakPipe link on howtopodcast.ca. Leave a message. I'd love to hear about you and your show and how we can work together to get your message into the world. Thank you for being here. Thank you for listening. And thank you for sharing the show with another podcaster that you're like, hey, I think you'd really like this episode. Go ahead, share the episode, and let's get more podcasters on the mic. Thanks for listening.